Yesterday, the Canadian government announced $5 million for the creation of an energy modeling hub that will include a number of universities and institutes across Canada. And now that sounds like a really esoteric kind of, academic thing to be interested in. But I want to tell you why it's so important. And I'm going to use the example of the oil sands request for $50 billion to pay for carbon capture, utilization, and storage. So when the federal government's considering the oil sands sector's request, how does it know that in 10, 20, 30 years, the oil sands sector will be competitive? It could very well spend that $50 billion or some other number on CCUS. And it turns out that as oil demand declines in the 2030s, that the sector isn't competitive and it's just wasted that $50 billion. Well, that's why you model. And the Americans, for example, model a lot. They have academics and they have research labs that do a lot of modeling studies. And we just don't do that in Canada. And that's why this is a really, really important initiative to underpin Canadian energy and climate policy. So I'm going to speak to Dr. Normand Mousseau, and I'm going to ask his forbearance in advance for while I mispronounce his title. Scientific Director, Institut de l'Énergie at the Trottier at Polytechnique Montréal. So welcome to the interview, Normand.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I'm sorry, I grew up in Western Canada. My French is terrible, so my apologies. Look, please explain to me, why is this important, Normand?
So this is important for structural reasons. So we've been working for a number of years at the Institut de l'Énergie Trottier on trying to help structure Canada's capacity to do this energy transition. So we've been involved, for example, in the creation of the Canadian Institute for Climate that has been used to be Climate Choices, and I always have problem with the new names. And we've been also working on data and other structures. And was one of the pieces missing is modeling, and data that supports that. How can we make, as you were saying, decisions that are enlightened by a good grasp of the potential impact? Of course, modeling is always imperfect, and we have to understand what it does. So the Energy Modeling Hub is really a service structure that will be at the interface between energy modelers, both in academia and private sectors, and the policymakers, if you wish. And the role of this is twofold. One is to support models. Canada, we fund research in Canada relatively well, so it's possible to develop new model. But once the model has been developed and you've published and say, look at my great model, then we cannot get research money for this, because that's not longer new. So an old model that sits there, there's no money to update the data, to update the model, unless you pass by convoluted ways. So what we want to do is provide a tool to support a number of models that will have a longer life and can be used by a number of people across Canada. That's one of the mandates we have. And the other mandate is really to do this connection between the policymakers and modelers to better understand what models can deliver and also help point. So we have built an inventory of who does what in Canada. So when people need, I need this type of modeling, who should I contact? Well, we have a list and we can help the policymakers saying, no, talk to these people, they might be able to help you. And maybe you want to frame this question this way, that will really be able to deliver what you're looking for.
Now, Normand, one of the complaints that I've had from other modelers is they say, well, look, let's take the example of the oil and gas companies. I mean, they model, these are big, multi-billion-dollar companies. They need to tell their investors where they think the oil markets are going and their profitability is going. So they model. The problem is they don't release their modeling publicly. So no one can test their assumptions. No one can check their data, check their math, as it were. And so will this energy modeling hub help with that?
Yes, I mean, the models we want to support will be open source. So you'll be able to dig and understand everything. The data sets, we want to make them tied to these models because it's the same thing largely in these things. Without the data, you don't have these models. So we want to make this open, but we also want to help understand what are other models proposing, what are the assumptions. So try to educate also better to understand, because we can understand that some consultants don't want to reveal everything about their model because they make a living out of that, but it's still possible to understand the difference between various approaches and decide which one fits better what I need, but also what can I take out of a model and what should I leave aside because I'm not sure I believe these assumptions. I'm not sure this is where I want to go.
Will we see a lot more modeling as a result of this? I mean, will we see more economists move into modeling, and will the volume of modeling around various issues like the long-term future of oil and gas, the expansion of the Canadian electricity system, will we see more of that?
The answer is yes, we hope, but we're starting with $5 million over 4 years. So that's limited. It sounds like a lot of money, but it's no, what we want to do, it doesn't go as far. So we will need to build this up, this institution. It's also not only about economic models. I mean, models about how do you design a city? How well will you put your charging? Can you handle that? How do you manage demand? So we'll have to do modeling at a various number of level, economic model, technico-economic models, but also technical models that are integrated. Also, there are huge gaps, for example, in modeling of social transformations. We don't understand how do social transformation happen, nor what is the real effect that we can count on this, on energy demand and all this. So there's a lot of different models that we'll need to develop. And of course, it cannot all be done with this budget, but we hope to be able to structure and get more models and more money from other sources to support this, this effort.
One of the complaints that economists have made to me is that we don't have enough data in energy data in Canada, and they point to the U.S. Energy Administration as an example of where it's done well. And so there is just a tremendous amount of data available, and the US EIA also does its own modeling and releases that. So is that another phase of this that, you know, maybe the Canadian Energy Regulator has to be given more resources so that they can collect more data?
Yeah, I mean, data is a big problem in Canada. First is kind of the approach. For example, you were talking about the Energy Information Agency in the US. The philosophy there is by definition or by default, data is open and public. If you're giving me data and it shouldn't be public, you have to convince me that I will not release it. Okay. In Canada, Statistics Canada works the opposite way largely. It's private and it's protected unless I see that it can be made public. And that makes a huge difference. And we have to push on this. This is not over. The Statistics Canada has created the Canadian Centre for Energy Information, but it's not new information. It's kind of gathering information available. And we have to push to get new information. We also hope that with our Energy Modeling Hub, we'll be able to get some information from other sources and make it available. So that's also one of our objectives. Again, we'll need more money for that. We'll need to push and demonstrate our use, but that's really something we are now acutely aware that we have strong limitation in data, especially on the usage side. Where is the energy used and how is it used?
Normand, do federal policymakers understand the importance of this, the data and modeling? I know it's an esoteric issue and very technical, and they probably roll their eyes and, you know, they want to get onto the, you know, what they think of as the more sexy issues. But here we are in the very disruptive period of this energy transition, where the Canadian economy is in the process of being restructured. The Canadian energy system is being, our future prosperity depends on understanding how that energy system operates and where it needs to go. This, $5 million seems to be a pittance. We ought to have much more, 10 times that at least, to do this job. I mean, that's my take on this. Do policymakers understand?
That's what, they understand enough to give us this money to start. And our role as we install it and establish the structure is also to demonstrate its importance, to support and make it a sustainable exercise. So that's really our responsibility to make sure people understand. It's also to broaden the pie, because at the moment it's Natural Resource Canada that is funding us, but a lot of the energy decisions are taken in provinces. So we have to make sure that we also get visible in the provinces and get some support there and be relevant. So this whole point of demonstrating the relevance, I think, is also up to us. And I mean, as you said, it's very hard for civil servants who need to answer stuff immediately to be ready to put money in something that will not deliver for a year or 2 or 3. We cannot deliver it this morning. We still are hiring the executive director at the moment, so we don't have one at the moment even. So it will take some time. And as we can deliver, I think it will be easier to demonstrate the validity. But we're glad that at least that NRCan is seeing the need for that.
Well, Normand, this is an important step forward, and we hope it's the first step, and that we'll see more money, more resources, and a big expansion of energy modeling in Canada. Certainly, our little energy news organization is fully behind this. Good luck, and thank you very much for this. Really appreciate your insights.
Thank you very much. And I want to just add that it's a hub. So it's really gathering people. It's not for a few of us who are leading it. It's for the whole community.